Why have you guys never gotten together? Why no mixing business with pleasure?
First of all, she's hard to look at for me. No, first of all, I'm a believer that tension is better if you keep it than if you satisfy it. And then secondly, she said no to me.
Even though Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers spent over 40 years exchanging intense looks and playful touches during their highly successful musical performances, Dolly waited until the year 2025 to finally reveal the absolute truth about what actually happened behind closed doors. At the age of 79, she publicly disclosed the existence of a secret tattoo that Kenny had hidden from the world for decades, which featured one specific word that completely changed the public's understanding of their entire relationship. By sharing the intense details of their late-night studio sessions, where a massive physical attraction constantly threatened to push them over the edge, Dolly finally explained the terrifying stares that she experienced and the specific reason why they absolutely refused to cross a boundary that would have ruined everything. Dolly Parton was born on January 19, 1946, in Locust Ridge, Tennessee, where she grew up as the fourth child in a family of 12 siblings who all lived together in a tiny one-room wooden cabin. Because her family was incredibly poor and their house had no electricity or plumbing, her father had to pay the doctor who delivered her with a sack of cornmeal, and he frequently hunted wild animals in the forest to provide meat for his children, while the family constantly struggled with hunger. Her mother, Avie Lee, used old feed sacks to sew dresses for the children and told them stories to help them forget their empty stomachs, forcing all the siblings to share a single bed and everything else they owned. Her grandfather, Jake Owens, worked as a Pentecostal preacher who noticed her musical talent very early, which led to the 6-year-old Dolly standing in church in her patched clothes to sing "Jesus Loves Me" in front of her neighbors, even though she suffered from severe stage fright. Although the church strictly banned the use of musical instruments, her father would secretly play his fiddle at night. And this quiet music helped Dolly finally understand the feeling of performing. When she turned 7 years old, her uncle built a homemade guitar out of a shipping crate lid and gave it to her, which allowed her to sit barefoot on the porch and play until her fingers hurt, while her siblings hunted squirrels for dinner. Because her family could only afford to make her clothes from flour sacks, the children at school constantly bullied her and called her Sack Girl. But she turned this deep pain into songwriting by writing her very first song, Doggy, and later composing the famous Coat of Many Colors. By the time she reached 10 years old in 1956, Dolly won a talent contest organized by Easter Seals, which gave her enough prize money to finally purchase her very first real guitar. Shortly after buying the new guitar, the local WIVVK radio station invited her to perform weekly on the Cass Walker Show, where she sang "Letter to Heaven" and earned just enough money to pay for the gas needed to travel back and forth. When she turned 11, she went to the WBIR TV studio to sing "Puppy Love" on live television with wide and excited eyes. And she later recorded this song in 1959, which sold about 1,000 copies and earned her the famous nickname Little Miss Hillbilly. On June 1, 1964, the day after she graduated from high school, Dolly packed her dirty clothes into a cardboard suitcase, grabbed her $23, and climbed into her Uncle Bill Owens's pickup truck to drive straight to the city of Nashville. Since she could not afford a room during her first night in Nashville, she slept inside the pickup truck parked near Tootsie's Orchid Lounge. And the very next morning, she walked into the wishy-washy laundromat where she immediately met Carl Dean, the man who would eventually become her husband. The Nashville music industry proved to be extremely harsh because record label executives constantly rejected her audition tapes, telling her that her voice was too rough and sounded too much like the mountains. Because nobody wanted to sign her as a singer, she shifted her focus to songwriting in 1966 and wrote the song "Put It Off Until Tomorrow," which successfully climbed to the #6 spot on the country music charts and proved she could make money from her lyrics. In 1967, the famous singer Porter Wagoner invited Dolly to join his television show with the promise of a steady salary and national exposure. But he forced her to sign a strict contract that allowed him to completely control her heavy makeup, her tall high heels, and her evening gowns, although their voices blended perfectly whenever they performed together on stage. Dolly felt incredibly angry behind the scenes because she had to borrow money to buy her costumes, while Porter Wagoner constantly took the credit for the songs that she had written herself. In 1968, she released the song Just Because I'm a Woman to criticize the unfair rules that society imposed on women, which shocked many listeners but also earned her the Country Music Association Award in 1970. When Porter Wagoner publicly told the press that he was the one who completely created Dolly's success, she felt deeply hurt and decided to leave his show. Sitting at her kitchen table in 1974, while crying and writing the song I Will Always Love You as her final goodbye to him, this farewell song immediately reached the #1 spot on the charts as her first solo hit, and when Elvis Presley asked to record it. Dolly bravely refused to sign the contract because his manager demanded half of the publishing rights, which allowed her to keep all the royalties when Whitney Houston later recorded the song. Dolly's solo career exploded with hit songs like Love Is Like a Butterfly, and she reached the #1 pop spot in 1981 with the song 9 to 5, which she cleverly wrote on a movie set by clicking her acrylic fingernails together to sound exactly like a working typewriter. When the movie 9 to 5 was released in 1980, it earned about $103 million globally and turned Dolly into a major film actress. Even though she initially felt very nervous working alongside Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, who had very strong political views and a serious feminist image, because she worried about her acting skills. Dolly memorized every single person's lines in the entire script, and she famously saved a failing pillow fight scene by spontaneously improvising the phrase "sugar time," which helped her earn an Oscar nomination and 2 Grammy Awards. However, the extreme stress of her busy schedule, her poor eating habits, and her constant traveling finally destroyed her health, causing her to collapse right on the stage during a live performance in Indianapolis in 1980. The early 1980s brought even more tragedy when she underwent a partial hysterectomy surgery in 1982, which left her unable to have children and pushed her into a severe depression, where she gained weight as her physical body changed. During this exact same time period, her relatives filed legal papers in court to try and gain control of her finances. And she also engaged in a secret emotional affair with a close friend of her husband, Carl Dean. This emotional infidelity deeply damaged her marriage and triggered a 2-year depression where she gained 65 pounds, canceled around 50 scheduled shows, and received multiple death threats that forced her into the hospital with severe abdominal bleeding. Dolly later admitted that the pressure became so unbearable that she actually picked up her gun and stared at it while contemplating suicide. But her strong religious faith and the love of her close friends ultimately convinced her to put the weapon down and survive the trauma. Despite her internal pain, she continued acting in films and accepted the role of Truvy in the 1989 movie Steel Magnolias, which required her to endure a near-starvation diet to lose 40 pounds and wear a tight corset that squeezed her waist down to exactly 16 inches. Every single day on the movie set, makeup artists had to apply thick layers of foundation to completely hide the rooster tattoo that Carl had given her and the Jesus tattoo on her ankle so that the cameras would never see them. When the harsh director Herbert Ross yelled at her over a ruined scene and asked if she even knew how to act, Dolly bravely stared right back at him and replied that it was his job to make her look like she could act. In addition to acting, she spent almost 10 years trying to record the Trio album with Emmylou Harris and Linda Ronstadt. Facing constant delays from unsupportive record labels and conflicting schedules that repeatedly stopped the musical project when things got incredibly bad. Dolly stayed awake all night in the studio to rewrite about 20 songs so that all three women would agree to sing them, which finally led to the album's release in 1987, resulting in 4 million copies sold and a prestigious Grammy Award. Using her own personal money in 1986, Dolly partnered with the Silver Dollar City theme park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and rebranded it as Dollywood, selling admission tickets for about $1 to attract 3 million visitors during its very first year. As the park became the most popular tourist destination in Tennessee, she expanded her business empire by building the Dreammore Resort, opening the Splash Country Water Park, and launching the Dolly Parton's Stampede dinner shows, which successfully created over 4,000 jobs and brought hundreds of millions of dollars into the local economy. By October 2025, she officially announced the construction of the new Songteller Hotel and the Dolly's Life of Many Colors Museum in Nashville, setting an opening date for June 2026 and selling out all the online tickets within just a few days. She used the large profits from Dollywood to start the Imagination Library charity, buying children's books and mailing them to kids in her hometown before expanding the program across America and several other foreign countries. By the year 2025, her charity workers had packaged and mailed out more than 100 million free books to children from birth to kindergarten age. And researchers proved that the children who received these books had a much higher chance of succeeding in school. During the global spread of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, Dolly transferred $1 million to support the research for the Moderna vaccine while simultaneously releasing the comforting song, "When Life Gets Good Again," prompting people to call the injection Dolly's dose and helping nervous citizens feel brave enough to get vaccinated. Dolly never stopped pushing her musical boundaries, deciding in 1999 to rent a wooden cabin in Locust Ridge to record a traditional bluegrass album called The Grass is Blue, with famous musicians like Alison Krauss, Jerry Douglas, and Rhonda Vincent in just a single weekend. When reporters asked why she recorded this Grammy-winning album that featured a fast-paced bluegrass version of Billy Joel's Travelin' Prayer, she gave the sharp reply that she had to become rich just so she could sing as if she were poor again. By the year 2020, music executives calculated that Dolly Parton had sold more than 100 million records worldwide. And by 2011, she had brought home 11 Grammy Awards while earning a massive total of 54 nominations from the Recording Academy. Even though she achieved massive success, she actually rejected the prestigious Kennedy Center Honors in 2003 because she felt the event was far too formal and preferred singing in loud bars while wearing rhinestone dresses over sitting quietly in a VIP box. When the organizers invited her again in 2006, she finally accepted the award and stood on the stage looking at the audience in their black suits, joking that they looked exactly like her tax audit committee before the ceremony celebrated her entire music and business career, proving that age could never stop her creativity. The 77-year-old Dolly released a rock music album called Rock Star in 2023, which debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200 chart and featured collaborations with artists like Kid Rock, despite their completely opposite political views. While she also recorded her own versions of famous songs by Queen, Metallica, and the Rolling Stones. The biggest hidden chapter of Dolly's life revolved around her deeply complex relationship with the country singer Kenny Rogers, which began with intense tension when they walked into the recording studio together in 1983 to record the song Islands in the Stream. Because Kenny argued aggressively with producer Barry Gibb about getting more solo lines and changing the song's structure, Dolly simply pulled up a chair, smoked a cigarette, and silently watched the men fight while the nervous record executives waited outside the door. After refusing to speak to each other during the break, Dolly and Kenny finally put on their headphones and sang together in the vocal booth, instantly blending their voices perfectly to create a massive hit song that completely knocked Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart down to the number 2 spot on the Billboard Hot 100. The record label easily sold over 2 million physical vinyl and cassette copies of the song. And the track continued to gather another 834,000 digital sales by January 2019, while the public constantly noticed their undeniable chemistry on stage and assumed they were having a romantic affair. During a television interview with the journalist Dan Rather, Kenny explained that the professional tension between them actually produced better musical results than a real physical affair. Laughing as he mentioned that Dolly always said the word no whenever he joked around because both of them were legally married to other people at the time. Kenny officially labeled their connection as a 30-year flirtation, explaining that sleeping together would have completely destroyed the magical illusion they presented on stage. And Dolly later watched this interview to confirm that crossing the physical boundary would have been a massive mistake. Despite her strong resolve, Dolly had to fight her own internal temptations when they returned to the studio in 1984 to record the Real Love project, where she found herself staring deeply at Kenny's hands as he moved back and forth between the guitar and the piano. She later referred to his hands as creative genius hands and admitted that she felt a very strong physical attraction growing inside her body. But she firmly promised herself that she would never act on these feelings because she desperately wanted to protect their precious friendship. While they worked together in the studio until 3 in the morning exchanging choruses and harmonies, they channeled all of their passionate energy directly into the microphones instead of taking that energy into a hotel room. Even as the song Islands in the Stream reached 500 million streams, and the tabloid magazines continued printing false stories about secret romantic meetings. During the early 2000s, their relationship suffered a terrible breakdown when they went on a joint concert tour together because Kenny's severe knee pain caused him to walk with great difficulty, which significantly slowed down their rehearsal schedule. When Kenny demanded to cut several songs from their performance list to make the show easier, Dolly strictly refused because she always maintained incredibly high standards for her stage timing and wanted to keep complete control over her performance image. Because they argued so fiercely over the working pace and the set list, they completely separated after the tour ended and felt deeply hurt by each other, leading to a long period of 17 years where they never called each other, never attended each other's events, and never recorded any new duet songs together. After maintaining complete silence for almost 2 decades, Dolly and Kenny finally decided to reunite in 2017 to sit next to each other for a joint television interview, where they looked into each other's eyes and admitted their past hurts while confirming they had never truly hated each other. Later that same year, the 79-year-old Kenny Rogers walked down the CMA Awards red carpet with his arm linked through Dolly's arm, and cameras caught Dolly whispering into his ear that they were going to go out just like rock stars. On October 25, 2017, they shared the stage for the very last time during Kenny's farewell concert called All In for the Gambler at the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, which immediately sold out all of its tickets and generated over $20 million, making it one of the most profitable farewell shows in country music history. On March 20th, 2020, just hours before he passed away at the age of 81, Kenny made one final phone call to Dolly so he could sincerely apologize for pushing her so hard to rewrite the lyrics to Islands in the Stream all those decades ago. Dolly listened to his apology in total silence before using her bare voice to sing I Will Always Love You over the telephone without using her guitar, turning the song she had written back in 1973 into the final gift she ever gave to him before he died, following his funeral. Dolly organized a special tribute concert where she stood completely alone on the stage while playing the instrumental track for Islands in the Stream, singing only her own lyrics while leaving Kenny's parts completely silent because she could clearly feel his spiritual presence standing right near the edge of the stage. In the year 2025, the public discovered a brand new detail when old photographs revealed that Kenny Rogers had gotten a hidden tattoo back in the 1980s, showing a rooster to represent his famous song, The Gambler, But the tattoo also featured the word soulmate inked right next to the bird. Because Kenny had specifically tattooed this word to honor Dolly Parton as his absolute musical soulmate, fans immediately started discussing the intense depth of their connection and realized just how highly Kenny valued their unbreakable bond. During a special interview at her home in Tennessee in 2025, the 79-year-old Dolly Parton finally told the interviewer the ultimate truth about their relationship, stating clearly that she loved Kenny deeply, but never loved him as a romantic partner. She explained that they were true soulmates who consciously chose to maintain their friendship instead of risking the terrible damage that usually comes from divorce. Specifically, pointing out that Kenny had signed 5 different divorce papers during his lifetime, because they both witnessed the severe destruction caused by failed marriages. They promised each other never to risk their friendship. Even though Dolly confirmed that the instant physical chemistry from their very first meeting in 1983 made them flirt constantly through lighthearted jokes, Dolly provided even deeper details during this interview by admitting that she frequently caught Kenny giving her what she called different stares, which showed that he clearly admired her as a beautiful woman and not just as a talented singer. Whenever she received these intense looks, Dolly felt a wave of fear because her mind issued a sharp warning that crossing the physical boundary for just one night would instantly destroy all the trust they had carefully built over 40 years. Because Kenny also agreed that the risk of losing their money, their fame, and their mutual respect was simply too high. They intentionally used playful stage jokes and light physical touches during television interviews as a protective tool to strictly control the powerful physical attraction pulling their bodies together. By consciously choosing to build their relationship entirely on the foundation of shared work, while completely removing all fleshly passion, they created a solid framework that allowed them to successfully collaborate, sing hit songs together, and maintain a beautiful friendship that survived for more than 4 decades.